it's Jackie, and today is a beautiful spring morning. It's that time of year where the mornings it's still quite chilly. There was frost on the ground this morning, but the sun is out and things are warming up quickly. And this is the perfect time of year to start thinking about what we want to grow in our gardens, what we want to plant. Today we were going to look at sunflowers. So you can grow little tiny sunflower sprouts that you eat, or you can let that sunflower sprout keep growing. And depending on the type of sunflower you have, you can have maybe flowers that grow about this tall and there's 3 or 4 heads on them. They're really beautiful and colorful. Or maybe you have the humongous sunflowers that grow like 10, 12 feet tall, and they are so beautiful and so magical, and they will bring birds to your garden, and it's really fun to grow them with children. So to start today, what I'm going to ask you to do is take your sunflower seeds, and we're going to measure out 1 cup of sunflower seeds to start. These are the ones that we're going to use as sunflower sprouts. They take about like 8 to 10 days to grow. They grow about this big, then you cut them off and you put them in salads. You can sprinkle them on top of any type of meal that you're having. They're delicious and they're so healthy for us. So you will see them sold in some grocery stores. They're quite expensive, but we can make our own, which is what we're going to do today. So the first step that I'm going to invite you to do is to measure out roughly 1 cup of sunflower seeds. And to start, we are going to soak them. You can soak them overnight. It's still morning right now. I'm going to soak my seeds, and just in a jar of water. It can be anything, a bowl of water, a cup of water, a pot, whatever you have. And you're just going to take your cup of sunflower seeds, put them in the water, and we're just going to let them soak for about 12 hours. So it's the evening now. You can see it's dark outside. Our sunflower seeds have been soaking for about 12 hours. So all I'm going to do, step 1, is to take a strainer. I'm just going to pour the seeds through here, let all the water drain out. Give a little shake, and then I'm just going to set this aside for a minute. For those of you who received the kits from Nawasa, I believe you've received 3 aluminum trays like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take one of these, set the other 2 aside, and you can take any kind of sharp object. You can take a pair of scissors if you want. If you have a nail, I'm just going to use a little tiny tack. But all we're going to do in one of the containers is poke some holes so that there's drainage, so that if we accidentally, when we're watering, if we put too much water in, there's a way for them to drain. So all I'm doing is poking some holes in the bottom. I'm doing about 12 to 15 holes because mine is so tiny. If you're doing it with scissors or a nail, you don't have to do as many, but that's all it looks like. So what we're going to do is take our tray with the holes. We're going to put a second tray underneath it. So this one has the holes. This way, if you're having it sit on your counter or a shelf in your house, if you water it and there's too much water and it starts to drain, water's not going to run all over your counter or your shelf. So the next thing we're going to do is take our soil, and we're going to probably fill our trays about 1/2 to 3/4 full, and then you're going to press it down. We don't want it right up at the top because for the first couple of days we want to cover it so that the light doesn't come into it. So we want these guys sprouting in the dark. So I'm just pressing this down. You want it kind of firm and also a nice flat surface. So that's what it looks like. Then we are going to take our sunflower seeds that are nice and drained, and we're just going to pour them on top. So these are the sunflower seeds, and I am just spreading them out all over. So you want to make sure that all of them are touching soil, like this. So that's what it looks like. And then the very last step is to take a little bit more soil. We're just going to gently do a little dusting on top. So you can still sort of see the seeds through it. I'm just going to use my hands to spread it out a little bit, but it's just adding a tiny bit of soil on top, but the seeds aren't buried. And then the last thing we're going to do, the second last thing, is if you have a spray bottle at home, it'll be very handy. I'm just going to spritz this. So there's a little bit of extra moisture. If you don't have a spray bottle, it's not the end of the world. You can just, with your tap, maybe turn it on a tiny little trickle. And then the last step that we're going to do is we're going to put this one on top so that it blocks the light. And if you have something light, kind of like a jar, that you want to set on, you don't want it to be too heavy, but if there's a little bit of extra weight on top of your seeds, it makes them have to push up to grow, and it makes them a little bit stronger. So this is what my sprouts look like on day 3. Morning 1, I lifted up the cover. There wasn't really a lot going on, so I just sprayed them, put the cover back on. Morning number 2, little tiny tails were starting to form. And then number 3, this is the morning, so it's really been 2.5 days. But this, you can see little tiny tails starting to form. So if you don't have a spray bottle, you can try to get the smallest, tiniest stream possible coming from your tap. And then you're just going to give it a nice light watering. You don't want too much water. You don't want your seeds to turn moldy. We just want to keep them nice and moist. So this is day 3, and we'll see what happens in another day or 2. Good morning, everyone. Today is day 4, and I'm excited to show you how the sunflower sprouts are doing. So here's our little fancy setup. I'm going to take the jar off. I'm going to take the lid off, and you can see all of the tiny little sprouts that are trying to poke their way up through the ground. So they're doing very well. They're still really white, and they're going to stay white as long as we have this lid on them. So the green color comes when they're getting sunlight or any form of light. Even in my house, that light is what will turn them green. We're going to keep them covered up because we want them pushing and trying to reach to find the light. So that's what's going to make our sprouts grow nice and tall. So I am going to take my water bottle, give them a nice good spray, or if you don't have a water bottle, you just do the little tiny drop coming from your tap, super small stream. Just water them. You don't want them soaking wet, but just nicely covered. And then we're going to put the lid back on, and maybe I'll do the jar for another day. And then we'll start taking the jar off. So this is day 4. So this morning is day 5. I don't know if you can see this, but the top tray is leaning forward, which means the plants underneath are pushing it up. So this is quite exciting. Let's have a look. That's a huge difference. So same thing for this morning. We're going to give them a little bit of water. Not too much, just enough to keep them moist. And today, instead of putting this back on with the jar like we did before. Can you see how they're starting to push up and the light is getting in now? So what we're going to do now is we are going to simply flip this upside down. So that's going to give them room to start growing up nice and tall, but it's going to keep the light out. So they're going to stretch up and try to find the light. And we'll have a look again tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. So today is day 6, and it's actually quite an exciting morning. So yesterday was the first time we flipped the lid, and this is what has happened overnight. Isn't that unbelievable? So that is because our sprouts had really, really strong muscles, and as soon as they had a chance to start shooting straight up, they took it. So same process for today. We are going to take our bottle, spritz them down, give them moisture but not too much. And again, we're gonna cover them up. And just a reminder, this cover blocks the light, which encourages them to keep trying to stretch up. They wanna try to find the sunlight. So they're gonna keep stretching up as high as they can in search of the light, which is gonna make really beautiful, strong, healthy sprouts for us. Hi everyone. So today is day 7. We've been doing this for a week. I came down this morning and saw that this lid is being lifted off. So this is what we have happening under the lid. Again, the lid was to keep it dark so the sprouts would stretch up and try to find the light. Now that they're nice and tall like this, I'm going to leave the lid off, and this is where they're going to change from this yellowy color to a nice, beautiful, rich green. And so for today, I'm going to do another little spray down. But this time, we are going to set them on the counter and just let them sit there with no lid. And we will see what happens now that they can start to soak in all of the beautiful daylight that the sun provides for us. Okay. So this is day 8, and you can see that our sprouts are turning green quite quickly. So I'm going to give them a nice spray again this morning. Make sure that they're staying wet. Now that the cover's off, they dry out a little bit quicker, so just double check and make sure that they have enough moisture, and we will see where they're at tomorrow. Hi everyone, so today is day 10, and it's pretty exciting because here are our beautiful sunflower sprouts. They're a beautiful green color. They grew nice and tall and strong. Now, the one beautiful thing about doing these things is that it's really good to try things you've never done before and learning as you go. So for me, I've done this lots, but I've always used a different type of sunflower seed. And what I noticed with this batch is that there's still a lot of the seeds that are attached. So they aren't supposed to stay attached. Ideally, they fall off. So I did a little bit of research, and what it was saying was that this tends to happen. There's 2 reasons. One, it could be that we didn't plant the seeds deep enough. So the sunflower seeds that I used to use were very different from this, and you just plant them really shallow. I'm going to recommend, based on this result, that when you do this at home, you bury them a little bit deeper. So you'll remember at the beginning of the video, we just did a little tiny sprinkle. You could still see the seeds. I'm going to suggest that we cover them fully. The other thing that I found on the internet is that sometimes this happens if they're not watered enough. So I was spraying mine once a day. So I'm going to recommend that you spray yours morning and night, and hopefully they will turn out just like this, but without so many seeds on top. But the good news is that I am still going to cut these, and I'm going to soak them in a little bit of water for maybe 10 minutes, and that should soften up the tops and pull them off. And then I'm going to put them in a salad. I'm just going to go down nice and low and start cutting them. And you can take them. I'm just gonna grab a bowl here. So if you think that you're only going to use a little bit at a time, just keep it growing for another couple of days. Keep watering them and keep them in the soil. They'll stay fresh longer if you do it like that. So here's a beautiful example of a nice sunflower sprout that I'm just gonna pop in my mouth right now. I love sunflower sprouts, they're so delicious. So a lot of people put them on salads. You can put them on top of anything, whatever kind of meal you're having tonight, just sprinkle some on top. Usually children really like these too. They have a really, really mild, almost like a nutty flavor, but they're really fresh and they're delicious and they are so healthy for you. So the final thing that I wanted to show you at the end of this video is how to make a sunflower house at home with your kids. So all we're going to do is the same idea. You're going to plant these little seeds, but instead of doing a whole bunch in a small area, we're just gonna put one seed in a tiny little cup or a tiny little container and start to grow them on their own. So these are some pictures of a sunflower house that we did with some of the Head Start children from Nawassa. This is an example of the height of the little sunflower seedling that you want to plant. You can plant them when they're smaller, but if there are bunnies in your area, what we find is that if you plant them too small, the bunnies will come and eat them. So it's nice that we're feeding the bunnies, but if you want to grow a sunflower house, I recommend waiting until it's about this big before putting it outside in the ground. This is a picture of a sunflower house that we created here with the children. So we mulch the area. You totally don't need to do that. You can plant them directly. Just dig some holes and you just plant the sunflowers several feet apart and you just make a big circle. So depending how big you want it, that's how many sunflowers you're going to plant. Again, remember, you want to put several feet in between each of the sunflowers. This is just a picture of the sunflower house as it continues to grow. And then this is a picture of what the sunflower house looked like the following fall. So it's hard to tell, but there are 23 preschoolers inside of this sunflower house. It's so magical because when the flowers come out, they're just covered in birds. The birds love them. They're everywhere, and it's just a really beautiful, fun way to create sort of a living shelter for your children and for adults too. They're a lot of fun to use with adults. So I hope this video was helpful and that it is going to inspire you to try at least one option, whether you do the sunflower sprouts or growing an actual sunflower so that you can create a little house for yourself and your children. One of the things when you're choosing, because the sunflower seeds that we're working with, they're the big sunflowers. So you're going to need a fairly big pot if you're going to plant them in pots. If you're going to plant them in the ground, just give them about, I would say, at least a couple of feet in between each sunflower, because as it grows tall, the roots need to spread out to balance it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about the sunflower sprouts, some of you watching this video might think, 10 days, that's kind of a bit excessive to commit to growing sprouts that I'm gonna eat in about 30 seconds. But really, on day number 1, it takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes to put the soil in, put the seeds in, cover them up with soil, water them, and then every day after that, it's just basically spritzing them with water or doing the thin drip under the sink. And it's kind of fun to do this, especially if you have young children at home so they can see them growing every morning. Even for me, as an adult who has done this many, many times, it was still fun for me to come down every morning and check on the sprouts and see how they're doing. So even though 10 days seems like a lot, it's not a huge time investment. So I hope you will try at least one of these, and thank you for watching the video. Please let us know how everything turns out for you. Bye for now.